I feel like we should bark.
These people are going to be editing it and they're going to be like, what?
Who are these wackos?
Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsey Germono interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Pay attention. It's time to drop and give me 20.
So this give me
is,
just a quick, this is your intro for the Drop and Give Me 20 podcast.
I will
correct?
tell you, I wish I could send you all of the recordings I've attempted to do. The problem is I'm not talking to someone. So it's very awkward for me to be like one way. And everybody who podcasts has a different comfort level with that. Some introverts really love podcasting because they're not in front of people. But I am the opposite. I rather be talking to somebody or in, a crowd because then I feel like it's more natural. So I've scripted it out. That sounded awful because it sounded like I was reading. I then just, try to record a couple things and I'm like, this is just not working. It doesn't sound good. And the episode really only needs to be a couple minutes. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes. It's essentially we're covering the who, what, when, where, and why, right? This is the episode that people tune in. When they go to iTunes, this is the first one. So they're, going to be.
So they know what they're about to be listening to.
Right. And I don't know, I have a ton of different directions. And every time I started talking and I was like, oh, maybe I can insert some statistics, people who love statistics. But honestly, that's not how I am in real life, So I almost want to just be more as authentic as myself as possible. I mean, we can always report stats and graphics. And also my worry is if I do stats, I'll have to reference them. 90% of employed female respondents reported to being underemployed with respect to education and experience or both. This study was done by blah, blah. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, and it just sounds sterile.
It does.
Well, and if this is, you don't want to necessarily have to redo the intro every years that your stats change,
Right. So the intro will truly be, something that I shouldn't have to edit ever at all. And I don't know if this is going to be a 2-year podcast. I'm cool with it being a 1 year. In my mind, I'm like, let's try it for a year. And if it at that, year mark, if I want to keep doing it, I'll obviously have a ton of people I can keep recording, but I'm okay with it being a short-term thing.
So I'm just going to start asking you random questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's kick it.
All right. So if you could describe this podcast in 20 seconds or less, how would you describe it?
Should I put my timer on for 20 seconds really actually to see if I do this? Because I love a challenge.
Let's do it.
All right, hold on.
Time it up.
Hold on. Or it could be like that game Operation where if I don't get it in the 20
get
Don't do that to me. Oh my God. All right.
I'm going to be barking and buzzing over here. People are going to be like, what's going on in her office?
So Drop and Give Me 20 is a podcast that was developed by Germono Advertising Company to showcase and highlight the real life of a military entrepreneur. So it's catered to other military entrepreneurs that would understand some of those challenges that kind of go into running a business as a military entrepreneur. So active duty, military spouse, and veteran-owned businesses, this podcast is for you. And it's 20 minutes long, which gives you the Drop and Give Me 20. Dang it, that was 40 seconds.
You suck.
I know. It's so good, though. You want to listen to it for at least 40 seconds of my elevators.
And I like so I'm going to break that down a little bit. So who is this podcast tailored to?
So initially it was really based around military spouses and the obstacles that they overcome. But personally, the word spouse to me just brings a whole new level of stigma. People think military spouse means female. Well, there are military spouses that are male. So I said, what if we kind of came and took 10 steps back from that and looked at the obstacles and challenges that military entrepreneurs have as a whole, right? So you have active duty military that also, their first job is to serve the country and not run a business. And then on the last part of it, veteran-owned businesses, there are so many stories that I could share there. And there are podcasts for veteran entrepreneurs, like just dedicated to veterans. And I think, like, in a nutshell for that, it's when someone separates from the military and they go to apply for a job, and let's say that they were in a operations type of position in the military, on their resume, they're not going to want to put that they're excelled at putting together guns and shooting, like that doesn't convey over to the accounting or HR position that they're applying for. Or what they'll do is they'll say, well, screw it, I'm just going to open my own business because I have a lot of really great assets and strengths that I've learned in the military that I can bring, to entrepreneurship.
What inspired you to add this podcast to the Germono Advertising Company's kind of array of services?
When I first opened Germono Advertising Company, I was in my hometown. I was in Norfolk, Virginia, Hampton Roads, and we were coming up to a PCS. So when I launched the agency, it was with the intention of helping businesses with their media planning, traditional media planning and buying. So television, radio, print, and outdoor. And we had 4 months into launching my business, we received our PCS orders to go out of the area. And it was awful because I thought we were going to PCS, but I didn't really expect to have, go into 4 months into my business. I thought I was going to have like at least a year, maybe a year and a half. But when we got those orders, I had 8 weeks to report, to move. And I guess luckily I had set up a lot of stuff, maybe, foresight, so that it wouldn't be so difficult to move. But now I work out of 2 different states, and I travel back and forth to those states. I'm lucky that I live very, close enough to Norfolk where I can go in and have my client face-to-face meetings. But when we PCS, that's really where I started to like understand what military life was like, because I never knew what that was like there, because that's my hometown. I hung out with my college friends and my high school friends, my family, everybody was there. So about, I would say 6 months in, I'm running the business out of 2 different states, getting clients. Some of the advocacy things that I was doing about military spouse entrepreneurship started coming into play, and people within that network started reaching out to me, and they were like, well, look, can you help us with our advertising and marketing, because we're military spouses too? And I'm like, heck yeah. And that's where the marketing coaching sessions were developed from that need. So you're supposed to listen to your customers and be aware of where your business is being pulled. And so that's a line that, I thought heavily on and deeply on, should we offer this to solopreneurs? And how does that look for pricing, right? Because like your traditional media agencies get paid and set up a little differently than the marketing coaching side of it. So I kind of realigned or restructured the business to include marketing coaching sessions. So to answer your question, during those marketing coaching sessions, when I started hearing, when I started coaching with those businesses and developing that relationship with that business owner that's a military spouse, that kind of pulled it all together. And the podcast came into play because we don't have an email newsletter. Like a lot of people have an email, sign up for our emails, get monthly updates and this and that. But I don't like those personally. I get it. And we consult with businesses who do them and they love them and they work. But like for me, I sign up for an email or, a newsletter, and I have full intentions of like reading it. But what happens is it comes in my inbox, I delete it, or I'm like, oh, I'll read that later. I'll read that in a couple weeks and I never get around to it. So I was like, what if I could create a podcast that people can listen to while they're driving or cooking or, I don't know, taking a shower, whatever you do when you're listening to a podcast, and be able to, share that kind of insight and wisdom to those listeners. Did I answer you?
I think you did. If I could recap, I would say that by launching your own business and some challenges that you faced as a military spouse and an entrepreneur. You wanted to share those experiences, and you noted that other military entrepreneurs faced many more challenges and obstacles in their business lives. And so Drop and Give Me 20 is kind of taking those stories and sharing them with others in a way that is convenient, that is mobile, that you can do while you're cooking dinner and the other things that go on in your crazy life. And it's a way to share those stories with others to help them grow their business.
So so all of that. And here's the other really cool thing, which you know, because you have an advertising and marketing background. So I see podcasting as, another form of niche listening where you can develop a message. And there's podcasts created for like landscaping. And you would think landscaping is like a visual thing, right? But no, I mean, like the podcast is around, businesses talking about that. So I see the podcast as, something that it has evolved, along the way. And it's a way for people to find a network or a niche topic that they want to follow. And I have a couple that, I love and I follow and I listen to. It's really easy. I can get in my car, boom, it starts playing. Or when I'm traveling, if I'm in the airport, I can listen to it. So I love the idea of a podcast for that because you can take it with you. And for people who are in the military, when they move to a new area, they don't know what their 90s local station will be, on the radio. So they have, they're more apt to listen to satellite or podcasts even because that carries them, it carries over wherever they go.
Tell me a little bit about the format of Drop and Give Me 20 and how you've found all of these amazing military entrepreneurs to share their stories and their challenges and successes.
Good question. You're really good at this. You should have a podcast.
Maybe I'll do a little guest promo, but I'm not a military entrepreneur, so there's that.
Well, maybe you're going to be in my introduction episode, so there you go. Jennifer Garrett. Okay, so the guests on the show initially were within my network. And then I kind of thought about it because the MILSPO Project, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to military spouse entrepreneurship, I'm very heavily involved with that. I'm a board member. And I went there first because that is an organization that, everybody has networking organizations that they go to or meetings that they go to that benefit them or not. And I think it's really important to find the one that works for you. And you can say no to the other ones, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But the MILSPO Project is the first one that I came in and I felt like at home, right? Like, these people get it. These are the people that understand what I'm doing. I can talk about business stuff with them. They're helpful. And so my first guest, my introductory guest, is Elizabeth Boardman, who is one of the founders of the MILSPO Project. And I did that intentionally because that organization she has no idea what that's done for me, right? Like as a business or as a person. So it's almost like a way to thank her and, the other founders of the MILSPO Project by having them featured us first. And truly in my career, I have not come across another organization that's benefited me in the way that they have. So Elizabeth Boardman is my first guest. And then I did not know all of my guests. And I mean, we're recorded through probably the next 6 months. So we also have more guests coming on. But I have Jonathan Hudgens. He is one of the owners of the Flying Scarfs. And he's one of the first few episodes that are coming out. The really cool thing about him is I met him at one of the bases that we were both stationed at. He is now at another base, but obviously we've kept in touch. And his company, he's active duty, and his company, they basically what they do is work with other countries to provide a source of income for those people. So he's helping families in Afghanistan, which is kind of a weird, you're kind of like, oh, why are we helping Afghanistan? But in his episode, he kind of goes through all that. He's like, here's why, and here's my story. And I thought that was really cool because it's a little like he's active duty. One might think, well, you need to own a business in, United States that helps the United States, right? But like his whole mission with the other founders is to help kind of give back in that social entrepreneurship realm. And then after Jonathan, I have Kristen Smith. She's the owner of Barks and Bows. The really cool thing about Kristen is that she is a military spouse. She also has I think he's like a year and a half now, a year old. And so she runs her business, like juggling, being a mom and wife and all that stuff. And she is rocking and rolling. She's got a huge retail component. She's really nailed down Etsy. And I wanted other people to hear that because they might be in that kind of similar, situation too. We have Rocky Harrigan, who is one of the founders of Unbranded AR. I met her at a conference, and she's like one of these people that as soon as she started talking, I was like, oh my God, I need to be her friend. Like, I've got to be this lady's friend. And I just reached out to her and I'm like, look, I know you don't know me very well. I met you at the conference and we're in the same kind of, military spouse entrepreneur network, but we don't know each other. Kind of creating this podcast. You want to be on it? And she's like, heck yeah. And she's really awesome because she works in the world of ammunitions, right? So guns, and that's it's even like, I have to be careful even how I say it, as an advertising person. Like, it's a controversial industry. I'll say it that way. So after Rocky, we have Matt Butler from Rollers. Matt is active duty. So as you can see, like, it's a good mix already. I have active duty. I have, military spouses. Matt owns Rollers. He's really awesome. He has created a company that is recreational, but he's active duty. So he's kind of like, he talks about putting people in place, for the company so that they can run the company while he's doing his day to day. And he's been in, like, I don't know, I have to like look. If you could go on his website, he's been on like Fox. I want to say like Fox and Friends, and like he's had all this press and all this PR, and that's a really cool thing that I want people to hear. Kathy Stoddard-Torrey, she is someone that I met also at a conference, and she's a business coach. And a lot of people, like in myself included, when I first met her, I'm like, oh, I don't know, that's hippie stuff, right? Like, I don't know. It's weird to think about a mentor or a coach, and then people are like, well, I'm a life coach. And you're like, okay, but what are you lifing me? Like, what's that mean? So I reached out to her like a year ago, and actually she is 100% responsible for the growth of Germono Advertising Company. She has helped me break down some of the walls and barriers that I had. And as a result, the net income and everything of the company has tripled. Because of her, I was able to bring on a staff of, we're up to 5 people now. I mean, prior to working with Kathy, I wanted to get all that stuff done, but I couldn't figure out how to get there. And there's money, right? Like, how am I going to pay all these people? So Kathy's episode is really nice because not only I'm aware of her, strengths and what she's capable of, but I need other people to hear that, because as a business owner, you think like, I got this, I don't need to ask for help, or, I'll figure it out. And I did that too, like, I'll figure it. I don't need to do that. You just kind of like overconfident maybe. And it really helps when you ask for help because your business can like boom. And now the word of the year is scalability, because we've grown so much. So I'm just trying to go, okay, whoa, like, everybody just hold on, slow down. And then we have Brian Richardson with the Company Project. We have Jessica Birch with Powerhouse Planning. We have Independent, which is an organization that was formed to help with health and wellness for military spouses. We have Fleur de Lis Fitness. We have another media company, Tequila Dotard. I have our Riveter coming up. Go Millie. So a lot of these folks are, military spouses. We have a couple veterans in there, and then a couple active duty in there. And that's just, to date. we have a lot of other people that are trying to get in and get recorded.
So when will you post a new podcast? So if I check in, tune into the first one, I love it. When can I get more?
So the way that podcasts work is you can go to Google Play, Stitcher, or iTunes, but you can also listen to it via Libsyn. So there's a couple different ways that people listen to a podcast. Let's just take iTunes, for example. When you go to iTunes and you search for the podcast, Drop and Give Me 20, what will happen is you can just listen. You don't have to subscribe or anything like that. You can just listen to an episode. But if you subscribe, then it automatically will, go to your podcast when there's a new episode that's released. So for people who really love that podcast, they should definitely hit subscribe because they can, they have easy access to it within the app. They don't have to go and search for it. What we'll do is release 2 episodes a month. So on the 1st and 15th. And that's also intentional because, in the military, those align with military paydays. So it's easy to remember. It's kind of a play on, the military component as with the name Drop and Give Me 20. So you can look for new episodes to be released on the 1st and 15th of every month once we get out of that kind of ramping up or launch phase.
And Drop and Give Me 20, that's important because each podcast is 20 minutes, correct?
Yeah. So here's the fun thing about that. I wanted to do 15-minute episodes. Something happened along the way. I was on Facebook and someone posted about trademarking stuff. And I'm like, I hadn't gotten anything trademarked before. Let me look into this a little bit. And I'm all about, do your homework. Well, I'm glad I did because Drop and Give Me 15 was trademarked, or a percentage of that was trademarked enough that it would have caused issues had I launched and been using Drop and Give Me 15 and et cetera. And I'm like, oh crap. So Drop and Give Me 20, there are, I guess, pieces of it that are trademarked, but not, Drop and Give Me 20. So we are service marked at this point. Everything's been filed, and so has Germono Advertising Company too, for that matter. Why not? And Drop and Give Me 20, sounds a little bit better anyway than Drop and Give Me 15, because no, drill sergeant has ever said Drop and Give Me 15. They're usually Drop and Give Me 20. So it was also a really nice way to convey that this is a military-oriented podcast. If you don't have iTunes or you don't have Google Play, you can always go to our website where we will have a tab that's dedicated to the Drop and Give Me 20 podcast. So you can always find a list of the guests. And our website is germono.com. And if you hang on, I've got my handy dandy mnemonic way to spell that out, this will be my first time doing this. This is a big deal. Hold on. Okay. You ready?
Ready.
So go to germono.com, Golf, Echo, Romeo, Mike, Oscar, November, Oscar. .com. That's it.
I like it.
Who's Mike?
Who's Oscar?
Ooh, Romeo.
Oh God.
Yeah, and so I'm learning things like that along the way, and someone in the military sent that to me because I had made a joke about spelling things out, sounding things out in a really dumb way. So go to that website and you'll be able to listen to all of the episodes. You'll be able to see the ones that we've recorded, and I'm really excited about it. So germono.com, you'll see a tab for Drop and Give Me 20. And I would love to, welcome feedback. You can email us, you can call us, you can tweet, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pigeon Mail, Hogwarts Owl. So yeah.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.